are San Jose.
Siamo San Jose.
We are San Jose.
We are San Jose.
We are San Jose.
We are San Jose.
Welcome to We Are San Jose. These are your stories.
Hi, I'm Louise Just, and today I'm here to interview my mother, Ernestine Ann Pimentel, about her memories growing up in San Jose. So tell me about yourself.
I am Ernestine Ann Pimentel, born in Milpitas when there were 200 people. We moved to 13th Street. We're all Italian. Went to San Jose High School, graduated, had a civic auditorium. Then I was going to get a job, so I'm going to get a job there where Original Joe's is. On the right side is stores, and it's Grayson Stores. I went in there, spoke to Mr. Phelan. I said I wanted a job. I was hired. I got to be the head cashier, and then later on Mrs. Warfield left for the credit office. I'm going to be the credit manager. I'm there for another 10 years.
That's a lot there. That is some quick growing up. So I want to go a little bit more deeper into when you were younger. So tell me a little bit about 13th Street and your house. Where was it located exactly?
13th Street was, the Kester Park was right across from our house, across the street.
Wasn't that also near the Holy Cross Church?
Right behind us was Holy Cross. And we could always hear the Italian men playing bocce ball, and so there was a tennis courts there that I would play tennis.
Tell me about what your mom and dad did for a living.
My mom worked at Tri-Valley.
And what was Tri-Valley?
Tri-Valley was a cannery. There was canneries all over at that time. My dad worked pruning trees because there were all trees all the time, and so now I'm going to go to high school.
Tell me a little bit more about what your family did for fun. Like, what kind of things did they have downtown for you kids?
Well, we went to the theater. That was the thing. There were so many theaters there, so we went to the theaters, and that was our thing.
What were some of the theaters downtown that you remember?
Jose Theater, and there was Jose Theater, and Lyric was on 2nd Street. And then on the right, it was Padre Theater, blah, blah, blah.
Did you go to the Victory Theater, too?
The Victory Theater. And then it was the Padre. And then there was the big one was the big California Theater. And
tell me about this parade you were saying that was similar to Pasadena.
Well, my mom would take us to right on Main Street, Santa Clara Street. There was, where Penny's was, there was a parade, like a flower parade.
Did it have roses and
like
floats?
Like Pasadena. So then we would be sitting there and standing there, and then they would disassemble there where we saw them.
Can you tell me a little bit about your experience out far reaches on 237, out in the fields there with your siblings, and what you saw?
On 237, my family, my godfather had a little ranch, and then my dad worked on the other side, and it was a pear tree that was there, and they pruned, and they had people picking this.
Can you tell me specifically about what you guys saw up in the sky?
Well, we saw the helicopters, and they came real close. And
I thought you were saying that they were blimps.
They were blimps. So anyway, we saw the men that were driving
the pilots,
and we said hi and so forth. So that was one of them.
Did they wave back to you?
They waved back to us because we were very close.
Well, they were awfully flying low, huh?
Very close.
And tell me about your high school you went to.
We went to San Jose High School, which was there near, close to State College.
And what year did you graduate?
In 1947.
How many students were in your
It was
class?
300. We celebrated the Civic Auditorium. That was a big thing there. Always a Civic Auditorium.
Tell me about some of your hobbies that you did when you were young, that you enjoyed.
Well, my hobbies was singing. I had two teachers.
You had two teachers.
I had two teachers, Nace Hill, and I sang classical, and then later on I had Madame Touche, and so we had recitals.
Where did you sing?
We sang at different places. I sang at some of the hotels, St. Clair Hotel.
Did you do weddings ever?
Weddings?
Did you ever sing at a wedding?
Yes, I sang. Where we were, there was Charamonte was the market, so the daughter was going to get married, so she asked me to sing, so I sang for her wedding, and I enjoyed it.
Well, that sounds like fun.
It was.
Can you tell me about your first job?
Oh, my first job was at the Cleaners on 13th Street. It was run by two Italians, and so I was.
They were immigrated from Italy, weren't they?
They were immigrants from Italy, and there was two bosses, Phillies and Remillard, and then I got a little job part-time after school, getting the clothes in order, ABC, and so.
Tell me about your husband, Louis Pimentel.
My husband was my neighbor on that's on Milpitas, and he went to World War II. I was 16, he was 18. He went to World War II, and then everything was fine. He came back, and then we got married.
What year did you get married?
1950.
And where did you get married in San Jose?
We got married at St. Patrick's.
Oh, that's very nice.
On,
tell me, what did you guys do as a young couple for fun?
Well, at that time, there's dancing. So we saw all these stars that would play. Betty Grable's husband.
Oh, that was Harry James, wasn't it?
Harry James.
Can you tell me some of the names of the dance halls that were in San Jose?
Palomar, and it was Balkanades, and we always danced everywhere, every place.
Well, that sounds like fun.
It was.
Can you tell me about your job at the department store and at Grayson's department store?
Well, at Grayson's, like I said, I came in and I talked to Mr. Phelan. I got to be head cashier. I balanced the books for the whole store. Later on, Mrs. Warfield left. I was going to get the credit manager's job. So then I'm doing the credit manager's job. I'm going to the bank, and
you were doing the drops at Bank of America, weren't you?
Every day I walked to the bank.
And tell me about what Mr. Simon had said when he called a meeting at that breakfast meeting at Hotel St. Clair.
Mr. Simon says, now there's no parking. It seemed like something's going to happen whether there was no parking there, and there was things were going to be closing. So little by little, everything was closing, and everything went to.
Everybody started going to the Valley Fair Mall.
To Valley Fair.
Because there was just no parking in
That's
San
right.
Jose.
And that's what happened to First Street.
Tell us that funny story, what happened when you were at the California Theater, when you were pregnant with my eldest sister and your first child. Okay. And what happened there that was so funny?
We're coming down the stairs, because there were stairs, and then I says, oh my God, I think I'm going to have this baby. So I went to the car. I said, oh, my water broke. Oh my goodness, let's go to the hospital.
So you have quite a lot of memories at the California Theater.
Right, and of course when we were young, there's a place to the right where all the young people would go and they would kiss.
Oh, like Lover's Lane.
Lover's Lane.
Well, tell me a little bit more about where your husband worked, Louis Pimentel, his job there, over there by close to Center Road. What was he doing there?
My husband was he worked at this Remillard Dandini.
And what did they do at Remillard Dandini?
Well, they had brick.
It was a brickyard, wasn't it?
My husband invented a way for to get old old brick, which is very expensive.
He invented that machine that made the new brick look up to appear vintage old brick.
That's right.
And some of the buildings even today in San Jose were built by those bricks, the Brickyard.
That's right.
And after he left there, what's his job now after that?
He went to the flea market. They wanted him to be a partner. He said, "No, I will work."
And he became a employee, and that was the end of that.
Everything that you see there, he built.
That's true. And
that make money.
And so today you enjoy yourself at the senior center with your family and pets, and
Yes.
you enjoy San Jose, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Very nice. Thank you very much, Mom.
Okay, my pleasure.
Hello, my name is Charlene Della Maggiore, and I am very excited to be able to share a little bit of my childhood history and some of my family history of living here in the city of San Jose. I am 63 years old. I was born and raised in San Jose, was born in the San Jose Hospital. I'm a fourth generation San Josean, so I really pride on the fact that I've been able to see the valley grow and go forward. I think I have kind of two stories I wanted to share from both sides of my families. Both of my grandparents were Italian immigrants. My dad's side, the Della Maggiores, they had farms over on the Berryessa and North 13th Street. So our weekends spent at the farms there were just lots of fun, my sister Denise and I. My mom's name is Roseanne and my dad's Robert, which both of them have passed away. But we had some great memories there, wading in the irrigation ditches and being able to feed the chickens and ride the farm trucks all around. Some of my memories with my dad were getting in the truck and driving down to Rocas Market in Morgan Hill. I must have been about 10, watering the vegetables. And it's interesting because I live in Morgan Hill now and have the opportunity to shop at Rocas Market. Kind of looks the same. My sister and I had a really, really fun time on the weekends. Going to the farm was always just lots of fun. And one of the funniest things is whenever the train would go by, our bed would shake practically from one side of the wall to the other. And my mom had told me many fun stories about growing up on the farm as well. And on my mom's side of the family, their last name is Moriali, and they had the prune and they had apricots and cherry orchards on Taylor and North 18th Street. And so those memories, of course, were always, my grandmother was Sicilian, so she made the best homemade raviolis ever. And I remember as a child watching her make the raviolis. But one of the fun stories about growing up in San Jose is she would take us on the bus to downtown San Jose to the Woolworths. And I always remember her buying these big yards of flannel material to make our nightgowns that you could fit 4 of us in. So every Christmas, all of the girls got these flannel nightgowns. I remember San Jose just being this beautiful, beautiful place full of orchards and farmlands, and I miss that now. I talk about that a lot. Our first home was on North 4th Street, across from Peter Burnett, and then we moved to Willow Glen. And again, you know, there were beautiful, beautiful trees and cherry trees and orchards, and we had the opportunity of cutting cots on the Checky farms. And so there were some really good memories there as well. I think, you know, my biggest passion is being able to meet people practically every week that knew my grandparents, knew our family, and be able to sit and tell the stories of us growing up in San Jose. So anyway, so that's just a little picture of what my experiences were in San Jose.
My story of San Jose, my name is Robert Barra, also known as Robbie Rob. I'm an up-and-coming comedian as well as social entrepreneur. And my story about San Jose goes back from the early 1950s, where my grandparents, the Gama family on my mom's side, settled on the east side of San Jose. and they lived on a neighborhood called Tremont Street, and a lot of the families there that they grew up with and that they did a lot of activities with the Guadalupe Church that a lot of people know in San Jose and famous of is the Rodriguez family, the Machado family, the Matas, and which was my mom, my two uncles, and my grandparents, and they were devoted Catholics. And every time, at the time, Father McDonald was the priest at Guadalupe Church, and they would get together with other families in the neighborhood to do festivals, and the festivals were called Jamaicas. And so those festivals were to fundraise money for the church and the neighborhood, and they would have a lot of the families in the neighborhood come out to sell food, and of course, the families there would be famous for making tamales and selling them. And also, I remember my grandparents telling me about Sister Bravo, the infamous, famous Sister Bravo, who was a go-to sister, and she was the one that would collect donations for families in need, and whatever that the families in the neighborhood could bring her, then she would also donate herself. And then right around the 1960s is where my grandparents moved in downtown San Jose in a neighborhood called the Hensley Historic District, which I consider it the Beverly Hills of downtown San Jose. And so at the time, about the early 1960s, my grandfather had purchased that home at the time that is still there and that I still live in, they were the fixer-upper homes, so at the time it was like 7 to 8K. And then on the higher end, it was about $20,000 to $22,000 to purchase a home at the time. And there, the families that my mom grew up with were the Anaya family and the Reyes family. And that neighborhood was very diverse with Japanese, Latinos, as well as African Americans there growing up. And of course, then, fast forward in 1982, well, I was born. So, and my family was still there. Unfortunately, the house across the street from my grandparents' home on Hensley and 4th Street actually burnt down. So growing up, I was, born at the famous San Jose General Hospital. I was baptized at the cathedral in downtown San Jose. And growing up, it was very rich still with, diversity and families. And I went to, San Jose Unified School District schools, and it was, at the time that my mom grew up, it was all about going to Jefferson, to Peter Burnett Academy, to San Jose High Academy. And then when me and my brother were growing up, we actually went in the opposite direction, and I went to Bachrach Academy, and then went to Hoover Middle School as well as Lincoln. But I can remember growing up to how my grandfather would always walk me to, Japantown, and I remember also my mom taking me for my birthday to Aki's Bakery, which was on Jackson Street, and going in and picking my cake, for my birthday, but also to remembering the pharmacy on 4th and Jackson, and walking into the old, coffee shop. And I remember they used to have the post office towards the back, and I remember that my grandfather would say, well, we can't get you a donut till we go get grandma's, mail out of the way, and we'd have to go get her prescription for her medicine. And so just a fond memory of that, and how the place is still there, just not the pharmacy. Also, it's funny how my grandparents, were used to live on the east side, and then they moved in downtown San Jose. But I remember every weekend, growing up, that we would travel to the famous Kmart, on the east side, and every weekend we'd go shopping to the Kmart and the Montgomery Wards on the east side, if people remember that, and also to our treat, or at least to my grandmother's treat. It was they had the Sizzlers at the time, and Sizzlers was famous, you know, back then, growing up. And I remember going in and having this fabulous, you know, lunch after shopping with my grandparents. And I want to pay respect to winemakers, because my grandmother would always order a glass of, you know, white Zinfandel, and that's how I got involved with drinking wine. And that's one of my favorites. But, you know, having that history a part of me, really, I really respect the where we were at in terms of San Jose to now where we're at, but to also hold on to that memory, or those memories, as well as that heritage, because I think it's very influential and very important that the generation behind me knows of that. I can remember also my mom telling stories that, you know, when she used to grow up on Tremont, you know, the truth of the neighborhood and the truth and the realness, because I'm a very real person, is that Sal Si Puedes was about that. Back then, all the streets were muddy. So, you know, it was, when you walked on those streets, you were either stuck, because when it was raining, it was muddy, and if you were able to get out, you were able to get out. So, you know, hearing that and knowing that, yeah, even though that my grandparents did move and bought into homes and property in downtown San Jose, is knowing that I'm not going to forget that my grandparents and my family, the Gama family, you know, they made an imprint on those dirts on Tremont. And now that I take that with me in my history of growing in downtown San Jose and making sure that I put an imprint in this community as well as downtown San Jose, and that is my story of San Jose.
This is my story of my family in the Santa Clara Valley. My grandparents were born here in this valley. My mother and family were born here in this valley, and I was born here, and one of my sons and my grandchildren, several of them, were born here. So my grandchildren are 8th generation Bay Area Californians. We have a colorful and interesting history. My grandfather was a bus driver and streetcar conductor and bus driver, and drove for San Jose City Lines, where he had to drive from Alum Rock Park to Stanford University. And back in those days, they had to get off of the streetcar, and turn it on a turntable by hand. And he worked for San Jose City Lines from 1900 to about 1946, when he retired. His wife, my grandmother, was a seamstress and a stay-at-home mom, and she did sewing for people in the community. And my aunt worked for Pacific Bell for 30 years or more. My mother was a stay-at-home mom, and she worked for, as a stay-at-home mom, she went to adult education. She worked as a PTA president, PTA publicity chairman. And I attended Ann Darling Elementary School, Roosevelt Junior High, San Jose High, and San Jose City College. My father was a worker during the day for Babbitt Bearing Company, and he had a dance band called the Harmony Lads and played for dances on the weekends. He played for famous different places like the Moose Lodge out on Mount Pleasant Road. He played for the CPO Club at Moffett Field and San Jose, Los Gatos Swim and Racket Club. And sometimes he did record royalty jobs at Agnew State Hospital on weeknights. Got paid through the record royalty funds. While I attended school, I had lots and lots of friends. As an only child, I found lots of others that were only children, or lots of others that I still continue to keep in touch with. People that I went to elementary school, junior high, high school, and college with, and keep in touch with them to this day. I was married in this valley. My my first husband and I moved to Colorado, and so we were gone for 5.5 years. Moved back to San Jose, and Daniel was born, my youngest son, and then my older sons were attending McKinley School and Yerba Buena High School. And the junior high in that area was, I've forgotten the name of it, I'm sorry. And then they went on to complete high school, and then my oldest son got married at 18, and when he did, he provided me with some wonderful little grandchildren that were 8th generation Bay Area Californians. The grandchildren have since grown up and moved on to do other things in their lives. While I was here in San Jose, I've worked for FMC Corporation. I've worked for J.J. Newberry's. I've worked for State of California Department of Motor Vehicles and Contractor State License Board. I worked at the Alfred E. Alquist building at 100 Paseo de San Antonio. I decided to leave the Bay Area and go on to Sacramento to work for DMV at headquarters and retire there. I've got fond roots here in this valley, and I keep in touch with my friends on a regular basis and get to see them and watch how their families have grown. And I have fond memories of being able to attend San Jose High School class reunions for the 10-year reunion, the 20-year reunion, and the 25-year reunion, and the 40-year reunion, and the 50-year reunion. And they were fun events that I got to attend. I'm very pleased that I've been able to have family roots in the Santa Clara Valley.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time.